Thank you everyone for joining us tonight for our last event of the season, gearing up for the deadline of 30th of September and applications closing coming soon. Today we'll be going through the application process and going through all the information that we think that you may need and leaving it open for some questions at the end to answer all your questions so that you can end up hitting that submit button. My name is Sam Southgate. My pronouns are she, her. I am the Scholar and Alumni Engagement Manager. I will be shortly passing over to our two wonderful Scholar Ambassadors to take you through this session. But before we get into the formalities, I would like to add my acknowledgement to the traditional custodians and owners of the many lands that we are gathered across the country and even overseas as well. So I just want to pay my respects to their past, present, and emerging community leaders and pass my respects on to any First Nations people that we have in the room here today. The land that I'm based on at the moment, which is the Kensington campus, is the Aboriginal people. So pay my respects to them too. And then without further ado, I'm going to pass over to our first ambassador to introduce himself. So take it away, Angus. May just be figuring out the mute button. Technical issues hits us all. While Angus is figuring that one out, we might circle back to the introduction when Angus is going to go through his section of the slide, and we'll just move on to Zoe, who is our second ambassador. Also on mute. That might be a me thing. Let me just double check.
Sorry about that. Hi, guys. So yeah, thanks for coming. Just reiterating what Sam said. I hope you guys are well underway with your application. But first of all, just a little bit about me. My name's Angus Reen. I'm a second year co-op scholar studying mechatronics engineering. So I graduated high school in 2023 from St. Patrick's College in Strathfield. And I'm currently on my first industry placement with Honeywell in their software center. And currently I'm working on their battery energy storage systems and some of the software behind their human machine interfaces. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Angus. And then with Zoe.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sam and Angus. Sorry for the muting issues, everyone. Zoom permissions strikes us all. Anyway, so to sort of cut to the crux of the matter, hi, everyone. I'm Zoe. Very happy to sort of be with you all this evening. I'm excited for all your applications, so very keen there. So I'm a fourth year co-op student. I'm studying the accounting and business management degree that co-op offers. So I graduated high school back in 2021 and started at UNSW in 2022. So I've completed all three of the industry placements that I do throughout my co-op degree, and those have been at Kooyong Group, JP Morgan, and TAL. And I'm actually graduating at the end of this year, so starting full-time work in a graduate role in 2026. And with that said, I'd love to get into the sort of rest of the presentation. So this is what we bring to the table as UNSW. UNSW is ranked in the top 20 universities in the world, which reflects not only the quality of the researchers and the academics that our students learn from, but also the students who we learn together with. So as a uni, UNSW is unafraid to take on challenges, which is why we're a top institution, attended by startup founders. And it means that our students are in demand by top employers.
I think we might have lost Zoe on the Zoom.
Let's go through the next slide, Sam.
Oh, sorry, you just froze at that point. Maybe if you want to start off.
Sorry. Which bit did I miss? I can go through all of it.
I think let's go from the top.
Okay, so sorry everyone, not sure what the internet issue is there. But to sort of go back to it, so UNSW is ranked in the top 20 universities globally, which, as I've said, is reflecting not only the quality of the researchers and the academics that our students are learning from, but also the students who they are learning with and who they sort of, in those day-to-day classes and environments with together. And UNSW as a uni is not afraid to take on challenges. This is why UNSW is a top institution attended by startup founders, and also why students are in demand by top employers, not only in Australia, but also more broadly around the world. So to provide an overview of the Co-op Scholarship Program, this is a career development scholarship which produces young professionals with experience and an edge. So the program has evolved because major companies want students who are not only good at theory, but also have the necessary practical skills and management capabilities to operate effectively in the workplace from day one. We know that the theoretical knowledge that one acquires at university is incredibly useful and necessary, but often can be sort of difficult to implement appropriately in the practical real world because of the differences involved there. So the aim here is to provide and ensure students leave university with a very impressive resume and CV that sets you apart from other graduates. So this is why the Co-op program was developed. It gives graduate recruitment companies the chance to work with the best sort of cream of the crop that was sort of trying to aim to get involved in the Co-op program here, and working with those best and brightest students of UNSW. Those students who are selected to be Co-op scholars are highly sought after when they graduate, and indeed most Co-op graduates do receive multiple job offers and often receive job offers upon graduation rather than having to apply for these roles. So as we can see on screen here, the Co-op Scholarship Program has close working arrangements and relationships with a vast array of sponsor companies, which is very impressive. Now, I would like to stress that being a Co-op scholar is not just about the marks. There are definitely other aspects that we are looking for in students and in their applications. For example, we're looking for individuals who will make a significant and strong contribution to their community, which includes UNSW and the Co-op program itself once they join. They should have, great communication skills, show leadership, ambition, a desire to grow, and initiative. We do also consider adjustments that are related to the NB Educational Accessibility Scheme, which I'd like to talk to more on the next slide, if that's okay, Sam.
Yeah, I might also just clarify the visas that you need to hold, which are also listed onto the screen there, and the ATAR requirement that we do have of 96. And as Zoe mentioned there, we do accept the Educational Accessibility Scheme. We do not accept the Elite Athletes Program scheme, for example, or any other schemes outside of that. It is just that Educational Accessibility Scheme. And we do have the a bit of an adjustment, which Zoe will go through in a moment.
Thanks, Sam. So yes, if one is a gateway student, one can consider the fact that the Co-op program do have equity pathways, both for students eligible for gateway and also for Indigenous students, which has the adjusted ATAR requirement of a 90, which can be sort of seen more through the application process there. But we would like to make explicit note that the gateway admissions pathway is a separate process to Co-op, so it would require a separate application with the gateway program.
I know this is a very frequently asked question, and it can be a little bit confusing to discern the two. So I just want to make it very clear to those that may be eligible for both for these pathways. If you are applying for the Gateway Admissions Pathway program, then that is separate to your Co-op application. Congratulations to those who may have received the first round offers that went out on the 4th of September for the Gateway Admissions Pathway program, but it is separate to Co-op. Just because you get that offer does not mean that you get a Co-op offer. If you get a Co-op offer, it does not mean that you get the Gateway Early Entry offer. So they are separate. They are different portals. You don't have to notify us of your Gateway eligibility. We are able to identify that internally and apply that adjustment of the adjusted ATAR of 90. On that note too, we do also have a Pathways program for our Indigenous identified students as well, with the same adjusted ATAR of 90. You can see on the slide there too that you can refer to our website. It is further down the bottom of the Apply Now page, for example, for some more information on the eligibility of that too. Thanks, Zoe.
Also, just to jump into another sort of commonly asked question that we get a lot of people asking what marks need to be put on an application. So with regards to that, we have a very comprehensive YouTube video that I'd love to sort of refer you to if you're looking for sort of details on that. can sort of see that if you sort of, look in at YouTube on the UNSW Co-op Program application process, and that should help you out there. But at this time, I would just like to call out that there is a free text box field if you're not completing the HSC and thus want to provide more details. So for example, if you're a student conducting the IB and thus don't have that HSC grade, and you're a little bit confused, then if the YouTube video should be helpful there. If not, the free text box should definitely be available, and guidance is definitely provided throughout the application process to sort of help you fill in those details and make sure that you're inputting the right information to help us evaluate your application effectively.
Yeah. I would also maybe add that if your careers advisor or school educator is a little unsure of how they fill in their side of the application process, then they can reach out to us accordingly and we can take them through that as well. So there might be confusion from your school educator's side too, but they can always reach out.
Yes, we're very happy to take all questions. So yes, to jump into something a little bit less heavy and a little bit more exciting, we've got the program preferences that everyone sort of should be aware about at this stage. And now we do have a range of preferences that you can apply across in sort of the business, science, technology, and engineering areas. And now if you should have your sight set on some of these programs, one or many, then definitely make sure to put that in your application. That'll be a core component. And another commonly asked question that we get in relation to these program streams is, addressing the fact that what if you are interested in multiple different program streams? So first of all, when one is applying, if you are interested in multiple streams, you're making sure that you're very passionate about what those are. And if you are sort of interested in multiple streams, you want to sort of be trying to identify, as you're writing out your application, what the common ground is between those different areas of interest that you've identified. So you can see how they work together and how that shows what you're interested in as an individual. So we can see some cohesion in those interests to make sure that you're sort of not throwing everything in the wall and trying to see what sticks. We want to make sure that you're filling in a genuine application and that you consider what you're actually interested in, and would be able to sort of genuinely pursue with interest, because it would be quite unfortunate if sort of you got to the stage where you ended up accidentally pursuing something that you weren't passionate in. So for example, I myself in my application was interested in doing both finance and banking as well as the accounting stream. So I put both those preferences in my application. And, that was on the basis that I wanted to pursue a numbers and problem solving based sort of career in the business industry. And I felt those two sort of harmoniously worked together and was able to sort of justify that and bring that through my application to make sure that it was a cohesive whole. But yes, definitely make sure that you're not adding in additional preferences just for the sake of it. It should only be if you're genuinely interested, because otherwise there's a lot of difficulty in studying and working in industry that you're not passionate about.
I think I would also maybe just add to that. I had a student call through and ask this question this morning, is that they have an interest in, say, mathematical or the numbers, and they've got a couple of preferences, but they weren't too sure how to demonstrate their passion or articulate themselves on the application form in those 2 or 3 different avenues that they're looking to go down. And what I was thinking is that obviously there's going to be a bit of a common denominator into where that passion comes from. So focus and hone in on that, and then you can have a bit of a brief explanation into the forks and how they go off into the different program streams there as well. Maybe Angus, I might throw it to you as well. What kind of things were you thinking about in selecting your preferences and the way to list them on your application form? And I think I've just got to, you should be good now.
Yeah, sure. So, I guess my interest in high school kind of stemmed from the physics and math-based areas, but I also knew that I really enjoyed the creative aspects of those processes and design. So for me, I had my heart set on engineering kind of from the get-go. So I guess I think I had 2 preferences in my application, but again, those were both engineering streams, which at its core had the fundamental aspects of design were common throughout both of the degrees. So it was easy for me to talk about in my application where my passions lied, and then be able to kind of direct them into the reasons why I wanted to do those particular streams. So I think that it's important that you identify outside of your career aspirations, what is it what is it inherent about your character? What is it that you're particularly interested in? And how are those interests and passions going to drive your career forward? And that should be a focal point in your application process.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks for that, Angus.
Now, I would like sort of just to briefly call out the UAC code implications for the co-op program. So for the business and business only co-op degrees, there is a separate UAC code that's separate from the standard UNSW degree UAC code. However, this is made very apparent in sort of any conditional offers that might be offered in the business area, that this is a separate UAC code, and it's not true for any of the other streams. So hopefully that's, sort of very clear. Business only has separate UAC codes, and, if a conditional offer is provided, then the specific business code that you should be applying to that program offer will be provided to you. So you don't sort of have to try and research and find that out yourself and be concerned that you've gotten it wrong at that conditional offer stage. Then that will be made very clear to you.
Yeah, wonderful. I might also just point out that accounting and business management, finance and banking, commerce information systems, and marketing are all underneath the commerce co-op degree. We've got actuarial studies under the actuarial co-op degree and business information's under the business information's co-op degree. Also to shout out the website link that we've got on the slide there as well. You can find the UAC codes listed underneath the Apply Now page. So scrolling right down to the bottom, there is a document to guide you on those UAC codes as well. And we will provide some more information at interview briefing day. Thanks.
Yeah, so just to turn to another sort of commonly asked question that we get, this is in regard to UAC preferencing and sort of how to structure that, particularly on your application, and also just sort of as part of the general process. So as we can see here, the FAQ explicitly is about, with the example of marketing. Now, we would like to make it very clear that if you are offered a UNSW Co-op Program scholarship, you just need to ensure that your preferences are set up such that you will be offered a position in the program if that's what you're interested in doing. We are going to be offering a lot more instructions. Well, sorry, not a lot more, but so, a little bit more information available on interview briefing day for those who are invited to the interview. But when you're structuring UAC preferences, you want to be making sure that on those preferences are actually sort of the degrees that you're interested in. They're showing what your areas of interest are and setting you up for the pathway that you want to be following. And you're not just sort of throwing, again, things on the wall to see what sticks. We want to be making sure that your UAC preferences are aligning with your wishes. And if you're offered a UNSW scholarship, you want to be making sure that at that stage, those preferences are aligned such that if you're interested in accepting a position, then you will be offered that position in the program.
Yeah, and I think also to add to that, as an example, if we use marketing, if your UAC preferences, it doesn't exactly have to be the co-op specific degree in those preferences at the time of coming to interview, as we know that these can change. However, if your co-op application is for marketing, but in your UAC preferences, you've got medicine, you've got actuarial studies, you've got engineering, then we might be a little bit confused as to where that passion and direction is coming from in alignment with that too. So you just want to keep that in mind.
Right. So how can you stand out in your application? So I think that it's important to kind of think about why Co-op hasn't asked you to just send through a resume. The application process isn't about just listing all of the great things that you've done thus far in your life. It's not about ticking all the boxes, although it's great that you've done a lot of extracurricular things. What the co-op really wants to hear from you is why those activities are of value. What did you learn from those activities? And probably most importantly, how did you grow from them? So it's not about how prestigious that particular activity was. It's more about the personal gain that you got from it and how you're going to replicate that growth in your studies and as a co-op scholar. So, some of the key points here that you're going to want to make sure you're ticking in your application is that you have really clear and detailed explanations of what you did. You can use the STAR technique to give you structure, and just making sure to hone in on the A there, the action. And as I've talked about, what did you learn from the experience? How did it make you grow? In what direction? And what were the reflections that you had after the fact that also made you develop? So, yeah, it's important to also understand that 4 to 5 years is a long time. So the co-op department want to see how you have demonstrated your resilience and commitment to things outside of academics. And so it's important to hone in on your resilience there. But as you can see there, the biggest word on the screen is passion. So not just for academics, but your particular stream of interest, your passion for co-op. You want to make it abundantly clear that this is definitely what you want. This is your number one thing. When you go to university, you want to do this degree, you want to do it at UNSW with the co-op scholarship. And so, as Sam was just talking about, I think that your preferences should also align with that, as Zoe also touched on. Yep.
Yeah. And I think just to reiterate on that, passion is, like Angus said, the biggest, or if not the biggest component of your application coming through there, because in essence, applying for co-op is like applying for a job, right? And essentially it's applying for 3, right? Because you're going to go off into your 3 industry placements. So we want to see that spark. We want to see that passion. We want to hear your story. Like, what was that light bulb moment for you? And each and every one of you have a different story. You know, there might be a little bit of similarities over there, but it's going to be unique and it's going to be different. So have a think about what was that light bulb moment that made you passionate about this. Put pen to paper or keyboard to pixels and put that into your application so that we can see that come through. It's also going to be an important question when it comes through to the interview as well. So it's not just a initial question and then forget. It's going to be something that will come up again and again and again throughout your university life as you're deciding on the career that you want. But with co-op, you are kind of in essence applying for a job in that first instance in that stream. So we want to see that passion come through. I think maybe I'll throw a bit of a question out while we're on this particular topic there, Zoe and Angus. Is there any tips or tricks that you can maybe give the attendees as to how to express their passion or even try to figure out where it came from?
Yeah, so I think, as you kind of alluded to there, it can be in kind of small or mundane things where you can demonstrate your passion for a particular area. So it doesn't have to be some grandiose project that you did on the side, but it's more what the co-op's looking for is a display of how this is lived out in your day-to-day life. What are the habits that you've formed, or what are the small little side projects that you've had that have really exemplified your interests in that way? So that would be my kind of tip. Is it's not always the most extravagant projects that are going to be of value. It's sometimes the smaller ones that really reflect your core interests and passions. So that's something to keep in mind, and making sure that when you are talking about that, that it's really black and white, and you don't want the co-op to have to try and read between the lines and figure out how some thing that you've done over the past few years has demonstrated your problem solving skills. You should be inadvertently telling co-op, look, this is what I've done and this is how it shows X, Y, and Z about me. So that would be my little tip there.
Awesome. Thanks, Angus. Zoe, anything to add?
Yeah, and just to sort of add on to that, when thinking about what you're passionate about, when you're writing that application, it's really fantastic if you're excited to be writing up your sort of answers to these questions. You're like, oh, this is an awesome experience I've had. You know, I really enjoyed it. I learned this. I want to tell you sort of everything. And if you can sort of, you know, be able to find those different things that you've done and those activities that excited you, those people that you've met, you know, there's, you know, events and activities that you've had a chance, and, you know, feel very, you know, privileged or grateful or excited to talk about, then you should absolutely make sure that that comes through in your application. We don't want you to just be sort of monotonous robots. If you're excited to tell us in that application, then we really, really want to know. You know, you don't need to be sort of considering the fact that, oh, I'm not really sort of, if you're a little bit worried that maybe you're not going to be able to express it very well, then you take the time to make sure that you are sending through a polished application. Absolutely. But if you can sort of channel and show through to us in your words that you're really sort of interested in what you've done, you've learned a massive amount in the, you know, the different areas that you've, you know, been able to identify, and that's absolutely excellent. And, you know, keep in mind that it doesn't need to be all the highlights. If you can, you know, think about any setbacks and challenges that you might have had that you've sort of had an opportunity to overcome and really learn from, then that's also valuable. If you can demonstrate that you've had that passion to put through sort of negative circumstances and, you know, those setbacks, then that's also awesome. That's okay. It doesn't all need to be from highlight to highlight, and skipping out what the learnings have been in between, because we've all been there. We all know that it's not a smooth ride. So if you can sort of channel that through and make sure that you're sort of being able to talk through what has interested you and what makes you an individual as a person, then that can really help make your application shine.
Wonderful. I think, further to add on to that, you definitely will be excited once you start to realize that story point, whether it's you knocked a toaster off of the bench and you broke it and you're like, no, I'm going to fix this instead of buying a new one, or whether it was doing your own tax returns and trying to figure out the checks and balances and falling in love with accounting. You never know where the story is going to come from, but your story is yours and we want to hear it. So putting that on your application is definitely going to assist with that.
Yeah, so interesting question about AI, which I think I'll hand over to Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Angus. It's a pretty common question that's arising more and more in today's generative AI society that we are growing into. So we've got the FAQ there of, can I use AI tools in preparing my application? So the answer of that being that the application, at the end of the day, must be your own work and experience. We tend to find that using artificial intelligence tools tend to generate or edit your application, and it takes the you out of that application. So as we were just talking about before, putting you on that application, putting you on the page, putting your passions there, it's going to be quite difficult for a generative AI to be able to communicate that the way that you would coming through there as well. So, it can result, in generic or inaccurate submissions, may not be reflecting your true voice, skills, intentions, and you don't want that to evaporate out of your application as such there. So at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of the applicant to ensure that the content of their application is their own work, is accurate, and is not misleading in that sense. Thanks, Angus.
Yep. So the application steps. So from here, what can you do? So obviously the first step is your online application. So you can register online to start that up. And then the school's assessment page. So you have to nominate your careers advisor or your year coordinator to complete your school's assessment page. You can do this at any point. So you don't have to have, kind of said, I'm done with my application now. Let's go on to the next step. It's better to get that in sooner rather than later. And then after that, you have the video snapshot, which is if you were successful in moving through to the interview stage. It's just a little snapshot. It can be lighthearted, something about yourself that, maybe didn't come through on the online application because you didn't have enough time, but it's basically just an introduction or I like to refer to it as a trailer to the interview, just so that the panel can get to know you before you get interviewed. So yeah, make sure you're kind to your careers advisors and don't, message them or email them on the night before it's due and say, look, you got to fill this out for me. So, give them ample time to do so, because it's not just a kind of click and go thing. It's definitely something that they have to spend a little bit of time on. So please get that in to them sooner rather than later. And yeah.
I think also just to clarify on that one, you do not have to have completed your application for
Yeah.
you to nominate your SA, like the SAP contact. So the sooner that you do that, the sooner that your educator is going to receive the notification. They know that they've got it on their to-do list. We do grant the educators an additional 2 weeks to submit their SAPs after the 30th of September deadline. But the sooner that you can give them a heads up and nominate them as an SAP provider, the better. There may also be some technical issues on the platform in having to add the new educator if they're new to the school or new to that particular role. And if that's the case, then we want to give the educators the chance to reach out to us to make those adjustments on the platform there. So I think that's maybe another FAQ that we haven't embedded into the presentation. If your SAP provider is not listed there, then that educator needs to reach out to us directly to have that rectified in the system. So it's not the student that reaches out, it's the educator that reaches out. Thanks.
Cool. So you'll notice we're getting quite close to that application closing deadline. I think it's Tuesday week. So little time left. So if you haven't gotten started with your application, I would suggest getting a head start on that sooner rather than later. It's not something you can do in one night, and for it to come across as really well polished, it's definitely something you're going to need to spend a fair bit of time on. So yeah, leaving as much time for that as possible is recommended. So yeah, and then it's also in early November, so 11th of November, we've got the interview and the video snapshot invite. So that's, I guess, when you'll find out if you've got through to the interview stage. And then the snapshot will be due 5 days later on the 16th, as I just mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
And then the interview briefing day will be held on the 25th of November, which is the day before the interview, on the 26th. Now, on the 11th of December, you will be getting your conditional offer. And as far as I'm concerned, your results for the HC won't be out by then. So it's conditional. You still do need to get that required ATAR to get an offer into co-op. So all things go well and you've got your conditional offer and you get the ATAR, then you'll be offered a spot into co-op.
Yeah. So just to clarify on that note, you will get the conditional offer, shortlist, or not progressed outcome on the 11th of December. That's based, obviously, the conditional offers are based on you achieving that ATAR requirement. And then 1 week later, which is the 18th, when grades are released, that is when you will be calling the office to accept or decline your conditional offer. And we will be going through that in a lot more detail at interview briefing day for those that are invited through. But just a bit of a summary of the timeline. This timeline you can find on our website and also on our digital brochure or a paper brochure if you're able to pick one up from a school visit or at open day.
Right, so we've got this frequently asked question here. Can I complete an online interview? So short answer is generally no. There are extreme circumstances where few students may be able to do it outside of the interview day on the actual day, but generally speaking, the answer is going to be no. So please make sure that your calendar is clear for that day. Otherwise, yeah, there are avenues for you to reach out to co-op if you've got extreme circumstances there, but it's not guaranteed that that will be allowed. So do not bank on that, I would say.
Yeah, I might add to that too. In previous cases, I know in previous years, those that are studying over in New Zealand, for example, sometimes the exams that are occurring on the same day or the same time as the co-op interviews. So if that's the case, reach out to us. That would fall under that category of extenuating circumstances as such. And like we said, it's based on a case-by-case basis. And attending schoolies/holidays does not fall into that category of extenuating circumstances. So if that was to happen, again, when you're issued the offer for the interview, along with the snapshot invite, then you can reach out to the co-op program with proper details of the extenuating circumstance for us to assess.
Right. So what resources do you have after you leave here? Well, as Sam mentioned earlier, I think the co-op does have a YouTube channel. We've also got social media, which has a lot of information on there. So Instagram's a big one. So there you'll be able to hear from scholars and see what it's like to be a co-op scholar, their personal experiences. There's lots of wonderful resources there if you want to check that out. I think, yeah, this will be uploaded to YouTube along with previous career chats that if you didn't get to attend, you can have a look back through the archive there, and that might help you out. But at the end of the day, the best resource that you're going to have is the co-op website. It's basically got all the information you need. There's lots of frequently asked questions, study outlines, eligibility requirements, pathways, UAC codes, everything's basically there. So if you're looking for a question and it's not immediately available, before reaching out to co-op, just make sure you've looked through the website, because 9 times out of 10, something is going to be there that's going to lead you in the right direction on that. Yeah.
I think I might also just call out on our YouTube channel the type of materials that we have there as well. So we have, every year we have our career chats events. So we had those back in July for business, technology and engineering, but we have those every year as well. So you're able to go into that YouTube channel and access previous years where there may be different alumni testimonials, different scholars sharing their stories, where you can learn a bit more from that as well. There's also some separate alumni testimonials, scholar testimonials, stories, similar sessions to this in previous years. So there's loads out there. Just go and have a look, and I'm sure it'll help you, give you that spark that you may need for that application coming through.
Yeah, so I guess if you're still not 100% sure about what you want to study, along with what Sam was just going over with those career chats, which I think is probably going to be your best resource, there's also information on our website on the program page. So it has an explanation of all the different streams with connections to industries and different careers that you might find you will enter after the degree. You can also find things like sample study outlines for co-ops. It will show the layout of things when you're going to be on placement, what subjects that you're going to be studying. So this is also a great resource to go to learn more about your degree at UNSW. But also this is, I guess, tailored more to a co-op scholar and what your kind of plan for your degree is going to look like throughout the 4 or 5 years that you're going to be at university. Right, so the basics. So here are just a few last tips. So as I mentioned before, please don't leave it to the last minute. It won't be fun, I can assure you that. There's only 13 days to go. So yeah, Tuesday week, and it's due. So make sure you're getting started early, drafting and revising. You're not going to submit your first draft. And just a quick little tip from me, I liked doing my application on a Word document. But be careful if you do that, because the restrictions aren't word-based, they're character-based, unless that's changed, Sam.
Character.
No, it's the same. Yeah. So just make sure that if it says 1,000 characters, you don't write, 3.5 pages just to realize, oh, wait a second. It's a lot shorter than that. So yeah, just make sure you're looking at your character count rather than your word count if you're going to be doing that in Word. Because if you're doing it on the website, you need to make sure you're clicking save. Otherwise, that might be erased and you don't want to lose your progress. So yeah, you don't want to wait for your school assessment page to be completed or confirm your grades to draft your responses. So you don't have to be waiting for those things to get started. So yeah, just get started on the application as quickly as possible. And it's also one of the other things just to note there is that the portal does time out. That's another reason why using Word is preferable. because you can't just leave it open for a long time. Make sure you're providing really detailed answers, as we talked about, going into not just what you did, what it is you learned from that experience, how did you grow from it, because the co-op can't really infer, we weren't there. Only you understand what that experience was like, what it reflects about your character and how you've grown from that. Nominate your school's assessment page now. So whoever's going to do that, either your careers advisor or your year coordinator. So if you have any more questions, make sure you're checking our resources. Even if you think that you're up to speed on things, it would be a good idea just to have a run through the website, familiarize yourself with where all the resources are. Check out the YouTube, social media. If you want to read up again on the different pathway programs, you can look at that on the Co-op website or on the UNSW website to get a feel for what the different streams are like. And also, this is a little bit off topic, but if anyone is interested in mechatronics engineering, which I probably should have mentioned before, you might not see that option when you go to pick your program. So when I did my application, I was applying for mechanical engineering. It doesn't mean that the co-op is not offering mechatronics scholarships. It's just the avenue they do it through. So when it comes time to getting a spot, the co-op department will notify you if there is a spot for mechatronics engineering and that was something that you were interested in, then you could pick it. So it's not something you're going to be able to go and just pick in straight away. You would be applying for the mechanical stream, and then you would get the chance to take up a mechatronics spot if you get to that stage. So yeah, I think that's one of the unique ones, if I'm not mistaken, Sam.
Yeah, mechatronics does have a little bit of complexities to it, so thanks for that. I think I also might just clarify on the point of provide detailed answers. For example, we don't need to know the details of what Duke of Ed is. The details that we want is your growth, your reflections, your experience, your actions as such. So that's all right. We know what Duke of Ed Gold is, for example. We don't need the details for that. It's about the details of your actions, the way that you went through that experience.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, when you're trying to think of what those details are, don't be afraid to sort of ask those people around you who might have been there at that experience as well. Have a chat with them, sort of, share, is your story matching my story? What have I forgotten? What have I missed? What can I add to bring this to life and make it a lot more detailed? I think it's incredibly valuable to, at every stage in your application, be trying to get that feedback and be trying to actually interact with those people in your life around you to really make sure that you're providing us with the most holistic and, detailed and, real and tangible picture of yourselves that you can, because it is an application. And whilst it's sort of, got a lot of different questions to it, in reality, it's a short application to give us an insight into your life. So you want to be making sure that what you're writing down is capturing that full picture so that we're not sort of, missing little bits of information that would have really sort of, made that into a little bit more of a holistic and well-rounded and very detailed story that should show us, a lot more about you. If you've written something up, throw it to a parent or a friend and say, hey, how does this sound? Do you understand what I'm talking about? Throw it to someone who's not, heard about that experience that you've had before. See if they can sort of follow through all the different steps that you've got and are understanding what you're writing, As Angus has definitely reiterated across the presentation, you want to be making sure that you're sending in not your first draft, but the most polished version of the story that you have. So make sure that you're using the resources around you because that's going to sort of really help you out and help you shine, because we want you to be writing the best application that you can.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, Zoe.
Right. Okay. So I know I probably said before that showing that your passion is the most important thing on your application, but maybe it's being authentic. So we don't want to read an application that is, talking about someone else. We want to hear about you. And it's really easy to tell if an application is authentic. So the easiest way to do it is just be yourself, and make sure that you are really just trying to get across who it is that you are, where your interests lie, and they should be real at the end of the day. So we also are really interested about what makes you unique, right? So what's going to make you different from the next application we read. Again, make sure your preferences do genuinely reflect where your passions lie and your future career aspirations, and only list preferences that you're genuinely interested in, rather than maybe some of those careers where it's like, okay, I'm going to do really well in school, I'm going to get an amazing ATAR, so I should do actuarial studies because that's the highest ATAR possible. We want to see where your passions lie, and your preferences should align with that. Your actions are obviously the best way to demonstrate your passions, as we've talked about. It could be through your extracurriculars. So yeah, different competitions that you did, side hustles, projects, being involved with a particular school group, a society, a club, working in the field, writing research papers, stuff like this. And then I guess that's about it for that slide.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks for that. Which then leads us off to a thank you. So the QR code that you can see on the screen there will take you through to our Linktree account. You might have scanned this QR code at Open Day or on other brochures to register for this event. It does also have a link to our Instagram account, our website, the digital brochure, and a couple of other materials for you to check in on. A shout out for our Instagram page as well. That's where we showcase our amazing scholars and their achievements, what they get up to in their university life and co-op life as well. So if you want to try to envision yourself as a co-op or get some inspiration from that as well, then you can also refer to that too. So we are all now going to revert over to the Q&A box, which is great to see some questions coming throughout the session there as well. So please continue to have those coming through. And Zoe, have you got your eye on maybe a question that you want to answer from the box?
Currently, I sort of think that any of the questions that have come through, Sam's probably sort of, thrown an answer back into. So just to sort of clarify for the group, anyone who's sort of, been worried that they might have missed something that's occurred in the presentation, it's like, oh, is there a recording available? Then, yeah, absolutely. As we sort of mentioned, anything here that has been discussed has been recorded and we'll post it on our YouTube channel for you to access and refer to back at a later time, sort of see what different answers might have been to sort of clarify any concerns that you might have had. And so, yeah, don't be concerned that it hasn't hasn't been recorded. It has.
I might throw a question to you that I've just seen come through down below, and I probably do want to have a shout out to those that are on the call today. Remember, there is a lot of information on the website. What you can't find on the website is Zoe and Angus's insights and recommendations, and my own as well. So if you want to make the most of this time, then that would be a good direction to go in. But we'll start going through the questions that have come through. The first one I might throw to you, Zoe, which is, are co-op scholars allowed to go on exchange?
Well, I can most definitely say that you are allowed. I went on exchange myself in term 1 this year. I was in the lovely Pamplona in Spain, which was an absolutely fantastic opportunity. And the way that works is I was choosing to go on exchange at a time that did not conflict with my industry placements, because that's the very critical first and foremost thought and priority that we have as co-op scholars is making sure that you are able to sort of attend those industry placements and making sure that you're not sort of coming up with competing priorities that might sort of overlap with those. So I had at that stage finished all of my different placements that I'd been on and was able to sort of spend the first trimester of the UNSW year overseas, speaking Spanish, eating good food, learning a little bit, occasionally about other things that weren't the sort of Spanish culture, but overall, really enjoying myself. And I was, able to work in very cohesively with my degree as well as my industry placements. I didn't feel like I was in any way sort of limited to that. I could have taken that exchange at any point across my fourth year because based on that is a sort of program specific timing that's just sort of based on being in the accounting and business management program. That was, an excellent window for me to sort of pick when in my fourth year I would be available to go. The exchange availability does, as I've mentioned, sort of depend on what program you're looking at, which is where those sort of, as Angus sort of pointed out when he was looking through what resources the website could provide, those sort of study program outlines can sort of give you a little bit of an indication of when your placements might be occurring in your degree. So if you were interested in exchange, when you would be able to sort of slot that in. But yes, it's definitely an excellent opportunity and definitely something that co-op scholars do. And I know a lot of co-op scholars who are going on exchange currently or have been. And so I was always very jealous until I got to go online, and now I'm just incredibly grateful and sort of get to spread the news to everyone. Yes.
Wonderful, cool. So I'll just go through a couple more of the questions coming through, and I think we've got a bit of extra time for our panelists or our presenters to hang around. So we'll try to get around to as many questions as possible. So we do have a question from an individual saying that they are a Gateway student. So if I want to do actuarial studies, I would need an ATAR of at least 90 plus and not the 99 plus that a non-Gateway student would normally need, right? That's correct. So to get into the co-op actuarial program, as an eligible Gateway student, it's the adjusted ATAR of 90. All right, so we've got that one. We've got a question from Stephen Deng. When would we know if we get into co-op? And because they want to change their preferences in case they don't get in. So when you know if you'll get into co-op, so you'll get the conditional offer off the back of the interviews on the 11th of December. Grades come out on the 18th of December, which is when you call up to either accept or decline. However, if you're not invited through to the interview stage, then you will know at that date, which I think was the 11th of November, if I'm not mistaken, on the infographic. But I would have a double check of our website with those dates provided there as well. We've got another question saying if I want to apply for computer science co-op program, do I just put computer science as a first preference? Because if I don't get the scholarship, I would want to do computer science engineering double degree. So which one should I pick? Maybe Zoe, do you want to answer maybe on double degree questions in coming into co-op?
Yep, absolutely. So coming into co-op, we're expecting that you are just sort of studying a single degree when you're coming in. You are just sort of coming in where that, if it's a business degree, you're coming in with that business specific UI code, or if it's an engineering, science or technology degree, then you're coming in just with that single degree for that UNSW UI code, which is true for that degree itself. So we definitely acknowledge that people are interested in doing double degrees, but we sort of, in conversations that we've had with our sponsors and, sort of the interactions that we have over the years, it's been determined that sort of students and graduates from the co-op program are quite attractive relative to those who have studied a double degree. So we could consider that a student may request us to do a double degree, but that's only if certain conditions and requirements are satisfied. So again, to reiterate, if you're accepting a co-op degree, you're enrolling in a single degree at UNSW in the first place, and it's more of a later opportunity to then explore a double degree option. And at that stage, you're discussing that with your co-op scholar manager and your academic coordinator to see if that sort of fits in with, the plans from your sponsors based on the marks that you've achieved in university courses, and, determining if studying a double degree would adversely impact your prior commitments to the UNSW Co-op program, which is our priority there, and making sure that you are fulfilling your industry training requirements. So the Co-op office will continue to sort of explore ways to expand those double degree opportunities for high achieving students, and we are very willing to have those discussions with current students, but you should be coming in with a single degree. That is that co-op preference if you're interested in accepting a co-op offer.
Yeah, and that is assessed on a case-by-case basis as well. To, I guess, also clarify on the list of preferences, if you are only interested in computer science and that is it, then you would just put that as your preference. If you are also genuinely interested in software engineering as well, that could be a second preference, or maybe even potentially a third preference for our business streams. But if you're the type of students where it's computer science or nothing, then only put the computer science as your preference there, so that we don't assess your application against something that you're genuinely not interested in doing. So we just got a quick one here. So can the SAP be any teacher from the school, or does it have to be a year advisor or careers advisor? It doesn't have to specifically be a careers advisor or years advisor. We do understand that the makeup of different schools are different with the resources and the teachers that they have. If your school doesn't have a careers advisor or a year level coordinator, you might have a primary teacher that you work with throughout your schooling years. So that educator can then reach out to the co-op program to make an inquiry to have them nominated as an SAP, and we will work through that with them. But you can direct them to come and have a conversation with us to have that nominated there. We've got a question of how many spots are going to be on offer for the co-op program, whether it's engineering specific or just in totality there. So the answer to that one is that I wish I could tell you. It is based on industry sponsorship year on year. So what we do is at interview briefing day, we will be giving an indication of the potential pool and number of scholarships to be offered in each of those streams. I don't recommend to play the numbers game. It's like, oh, well, maybe this stream's going to get less applications and more sponsorships, so this is going to be my best bet. Go back to that comment and those reiterations we've made around that passion, interest, genuine authenticity, and wanting to pursue that stream. Don't think about it as a numbers game. Put your best foot forward for the particular stream that you're interested in there as well. If you do want to have a look at which sponsors sponsor the different streams, then you can also have a look at that on our website underneath that section there too.
Yes, so yeah, just to sort of reinforce that, we have on our website historical sponsors that we have. It's not necessarily true that they're going to be sponsoring in 2026, because that is sort of a moving pool that does change year on year. But you can get sort of a little bit of a flavor of what companies you're sort of most likely to come across in those different streams on the website, to provide a little bit more information as to sort of what we're available in that we have available to communicate to you at this stage.
Maybe a question for Angus. What happens if you're overseas throughout November during the interviews?
Look, avoid it if you can, I would say. But again, if there are extreme circumstances, I would just suggest having a conversation with co-op about it when you have to cross that bridge. It's definitely something that you want to try and avoid at all costs. I guess being there for the interview is the first kind of important thing that you need to make yourself available for. But again, as Sam kind of mentioned earlier, it's assessed on a case-by-case basis. So if you're overseas on schoolies, unfortunately, that's probably not going to be the best excuse 99% of the time. It's going to have to be something that's quite extenuating that will be judged transparently by the co-op office. So yeah, try to avoid it if you can. But if it's unavoidable, then you can definitely have a chat to the co-op about that.
Yep, wonderful. Thank you. The next question I think that we might tackle, which is just condensing a few of them coming through. We've got a question of when it refers to a significant project or achievement, does it have to be something on a grand scale?
Well, no, I don't think so. Yeah, I definitely think that kind of what we're talking about before, sometimes it's the way in which you articulate the response. Well, not sometimes, all of the time. It's going to be about how you articulate your experience. That's really going to be something that's going to, I guess, push your application forward. So it's not about how grand your achievement was. It's more about how, I guess, metacognitive you are and how you can appreciate that experience and what it has done for your character and your personal growth and development. So I know in my application, some of the questions about, side hustles and side projects, they were really small things. But the thing is that it didn't matter that they were small because I'd really taken something important away from those experiences. So if you're able to hone into that aspect, it shouldn't matter how big or extravagant the project was. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, and just to reinforce that, if an application comes in that's just sort of thrown a big name in response to a question without providing any of that background detail, then they're not going to be sort of doing any better just for the sake of, oh, wow, big name, big great grand scale. As Angus has reinforced, it comes back to how you can communicate the lessons that you've learned and how you've grown as a person and truly developed and what your skills are in relation to that make it really meaningful. So as long as you can sort of get to the heart of answering that question and really show us sort of what you've been able to sort of come to achieve, then that's really the main thing. Don't sort of give an empty answer if you can give the wow factor as, the full answer. Try not to do that because that's not what we're looking for.
Yeah. And I think that also ties together a few more questions that are coming through, which is how important is the academics? Someone says, unless you get an ATAR of 99 plus and hundreds of hours of community service or extracurricular involvement, then you don't have a chance. Absolutely not the case. So there's vast amounts of individuals that have different opportunities to get involved in those extracurriculars as well. So we're not assessing it from who's done the most hours or who's been the most involved in that in its sense. It is about the guts of the application. What did you learn from yourself? What did you learn from that example? Where did you grow? What was the reflections? Can you talk us through the details of the why you approached it that way? So going into those details so that we can really see the qualities that we're looking for from co-op scholars coming through as well. So yeah, it's not just about the marks. That's the benchmark to be eligible for the program. Beyond that, it's about those metrics that we were talking about before. I think, yeah, so it's definitely about those metrics. There is a little bit of a lens of looking at your academics from that standpoint, but that is more specific on the streams itself. Say, for example, if you are applying for chemical engineering, but you did not have a very strong performance on your physics year 11 or year 12 course, then we might have a bit of a question as to your ability to be able to maintain those studies and those academic requirements within it. Or for example, if you're applying for advanced mathematics and you only did general math, for example, then we might have a bit of a question around that. So also looking to make sure that you're set up for success with your study habits and results leading into the program as well. So there's a little bit of an aspect of that too. We do have a question about how will the co-op program be affected by the changes to UNSW trimester program changing 2 semesters in 2028. So yes, UNSW will be switching from trimesters over to semesters. But the thing is that UNSW used to be semester-based as well. The co-op program's been around since 1988, so we were definitely here when it was semester-based. We went through the changes to trimesters, and we will go through the changes back to semesters. The program may not look exactly the same as what it was before when we were on the semester-based program, but we've done it before. Nothing's really going to change. It just might look a little bit different with the details and how the timing of the IT placements come through there. But in essence, majority of the co-op program is going to remain the same from that aspect. So that was a good question. And we will keep everyone informed as that progresses along. We've obviously got a couple of years to go before that rolls out as well. So everyone will be informed as we go through that. Cool. So just skimming through. So we've got a question about, could you still get a co-op scholarship for computer science if you do advanced computer science? So advanced computer science is a new degree that's just come out to UNSW just recently, I believe. So at the moment, the co-op program is just for the computer science degree. It is not for the advanced computer science degree. That may change in the future, who knows? But at this point in time, it is just the computer science program stream for that. Cool. Just skimming through. I've got the same again. When is the cutoff When is the cutoff for offer acceptances if you're intending to apply overseas? Yep. So, for example, at the time that offers or that you get your grades come through and you're able to accept your conditional offer on the 18th of December, you may be overseas, you may be uncontactable, you might be in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. Who knows where you could be? If that is the case, then what you can do is you can set up a delegate to speak on your behalf to either accept or decline the offer, depending on the grades that come through on that particular day. So I hope that helps answer that question. If it is about applying and submitting your application, then the deadline is the 30th of September. So we've had applications open since the 1st of May. We've got 13 days to go to be able to chip away at it, 2 weekends to be able to invest into it. So that is a hard deadline of the 30th of September. We do have a question here from Adrian, I think it is. If you receive a conditional offer and get 96 plus ATAR, does that mean that you got the offer? So you'll get the conditional offer on the 11th, or you'll get the conditional offer when it's sent out. If you've achieved the ATAR of 96 on that day, that means that you are eligible to accept the offer. You could choose to decline the offer in that instance as well. So you either accept or decline at that point. There will be a lot more information provided at interview briefing day on the process of that and the timeframes and the do's and don'ts and the protocols to set up to make sure that those come through. We've got another question. Since we can put up to 3 preferences for the co-op program, would I also need to put these 3 courses in my UAC preferences? Zoe or Angus, you want to have a go at that one?
I'm happy to take a look. So, as with your sort of co-op preferences and UAC preferences, as we've, iterated throughout, you should be making sure that those align with what you're sort of genuinely interested in doing. But you want to keep in mind that if those sort of are business-related areas, then co-op does have those separate UAC codes for the business-specific co-op program streams. So putting those in sort of your earlier UAC preferences, you're not going to sort of put into UAC a co-op specific code and get that accepted through UAC prior to those conditional offers being offered in the 11th of December and those results being released. And if you've been accepted into the program, you then accept an offer. You want to be making sure that if you're interested in doing a co-op degree, if you're making sure that at that stage in the UAC process, in that stage in the UAC rounds after the conditional offers have been sent out, results have been released, and then you've sort of met that ATAR threshold and have decided that you do want to accept the program, that at that stage your UAC preferences are aligning with that. And if that means that you've received an offer for a business UAC, business co-op degree, then your UAC code is the co-op specific business code, which will have been communicated to you in that offer that you will have received. So it'll be very clear at that stage that if you're wanting to sort of accept that offer and have that in your preferences, that's what you can put in. At this stage in your UAC preferences, you're wanting to make sure that they're sort of reflecting what you're interested in doing. So for example, if you are interested in doing a Bachelor of Commerce at UNSW, then maybe not putting in that co-op specific code, because at this stage, that's not sort of what we're looking for. That's something that you're putting in at the end if that's something you've received an offer for and interested in accepting. At this stage, sort of the UNSW specific UAC code, if that's what you're interested in putting there, would be perfectly reasonable to have. Yeah, making sure that they're just aligning with what your personal preferences are, and making sure that you're reflecting what you're genuinely interested in.
Yeah. So I think to clarify, the only time that you must have the specific co-op degree or relevant UNSW degree, if it's not under those business categories we went through earlier, the only time you must have it in your preferences is when you're accepting the offer. Up until then, we know that they shift, they move around, things can happen. You might not be invited through for interview, you might change your preferences at that point, but the only point that you must have it in your preferences is when you're accepting that offer. However, as Zoe was indicating, at the time of application, what we see there, if you've got medicine and you've got dentistry and you've got actuarial on there, but on your co-op application, you've got marketing, we might have a little bit of a question around where your genuine passion areas are from that sense too. So yeah, I think that is good. We do have a question of, is it compulsory to attend interview briefing day. It is not, but it is heavily, 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 heavily recommended to go to that. There is a lot of information that we go through, all the way through to campus tours to have a look at the colleges and accommodation on campus, through to breakout sessions with the streams to have a chat with academic coordinators, with some scholars that are in the program to hear from themselves. I'll be facilitating the day as well to go through information like the dates, deadlines, UAC preferences, timeframes, etc. Also have a little session about how to prepare for your interview for the next day. There's loads of information that's going to be covered in there. It's going to be an electrifying day. It's going to be exciting. It's not compulsory, but I heavily recommend that you try to come and attend that one if you can.
Yeah, it's going to get you sort of immersed in the correct mindset and, having, the trains of thought in the correct areas and, getting you excited, but also providing you with a lot of information, particularly stuff that is going to be quite useful as you're going through your interviews. So if you can make it, yes, would definitely recommend, because it'll sort of get your mindset in the correct space so that you can sort of really take on that interview from the best position possible and have been provided with as much information as you can. Sort of looking at the resources that might be sort of provided externally that you can look at later is not going to give you that depth, and it's not going to allow you to ask those questions that you might want to at the time. So you won't be able to speak with those scholars and with those different knowledgeable people to sort of clarify any points that you have. So yeah, definitely would recommend attending.
Yeah. We've got another question. If you apply through Gateway, well, let's say you're an eligible Gateway student, however, you get an ATAR of 96 and above, do you get considered as a Gateway applicant or a normal applicant? So maybe just to clarify, with the pathways programs that we have, the equity pathways, so both for Indigenous and Gateway students, we do have up to 4 spots per pathway to be utilised of the adjusted ATAR requirement of 90. If the student is able to achieve an ATAR above 96 and not needing to use the flexibility, then one of those pathway spots is not taken up. So 4 for Gateway, 4 for Indigenous. However, it's not whether or not you're a Gateway student or not at the time of applying. It's in regards to your application. It's more on the equity pathways as such. So that won't carry over. Cool. So we've got some coming through. So we just got another question about if you're applying interstate, it is the interview online or in person. So it's definitely in person. And we've just answered that one beforehand. I did see a good question come up afterwards. It was a good question. I want to get to it. Can I talk about a significant project that I did in late year 10? Is it recommended that the project will be within the last 2 years? Look, if that's the only example that you have which is able to demonstrate that passion in that area, then that's definitely a good example to use. But you could even use it in a sense of that's what started or sparked your inspiration and your passion, but then what did you do after that? If you're having a chat to someone and they say they're really passionate about something, but they can't give you an example that they've done within the last 2 years, then you might be like, okay, like where is this passion coming from? I'm missing something. I'm missing that story. So you just want to make sure that you're clearly articulating that. That's a great starting point, but I'm sure that there's other things in the middle that you've done that's related to your passion area, which you're going to be able to demonstrate that too, because that also ties into that longer term commitment, that longer term passion. It's something that's been stuck with you for a longer amount of time. That's not to say that if it's a more recent, epiphany moment that you've had, that doesn't mean that that's worse off than the other factor. It really just depends on that circumstance and how you explain yourself to that. It can be a very well thought out epiphany moment, even if it was only something that happened 2 days ago. If anything, that might be quite fresh in your brain. So yeah, it's just trying to articulate and highlight that passion as best as you can coming through. Maybe another question here for IB students. There are opportunities for remarks after results have come out, which can lead to changes in the ATAR. If we don't meet the ATAR cutoff when our results first come out and a mark change happens later, does that conditional offer still stand? That is a really interesting question, and I'm not too sure how to answer that one myself. So for that one, we might just send a bit of a follow-up answer out to those that attended the event today, so that you can get that answer there to you. But what I might also suggest is that you send a direct email as well to the co-op program with that inquiry, so that our systems administrator can have a look at that one and get back to you as well. Also, maybe just to note on those that aren't doing the relevant HSE, New South Wales marks, whether it's overseas or interstate that's using a different curriculum, etc. Just to note that if that is the case and the grades or your rankings for your results are difficult to input, then you can utilize that free text box down the bottom there. And if there isn't going to be anything input into the numbers section above there, you do want to make sure that it's quite a detailed explanation of those marks, what the expectances is. You can refer to your latest report card or just anything in the recent history that can indicate towards your performance there for us to take into account with our assessment. So please want to make sure that you are utilizing that free text box. And if you are getting stuck, then there is that how-to video that's on our YouTube channel to be able to refer to go through the application as such. Now, I am conscious of time. We're about 20 minutes over the original end time that we had, so we might leave it at that because I do believe we've covered most of the frequently asked questions. If there is anything that we haven't gotten around to answering today and it is you're unable to find it through the resources on our website, or you're just having difficulties understanding it, then you can absolutely reach out to the co-op program. Sooner rather than later, if we get flooded with 1,000 inquiries on the 30th of September, we're probably not going to get around to all of those. So, just like you're being kind to your SAPs, also be kind to us and giving us that notice to answer those type of questions. Have a look at the resources and materials. They're there online. I'm sure that about 90% of your questions can likely be answered there. But for those unique curly ones, please feel free to send that through. And just want to say a massive thank you to Zoe and Angus for presenting today's session and sharing your insights and tips. But before we wrap things up, if I could get you to part your ways with some golden nuggets of wisdom, if you wanted to share those for your last tips.
Absolutely. Angus, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I know we talked about it a few times, but authenticity is going to get you a long way. So during the application and during the interview, make sure your authenticity is coming through. That's very important. And I guess another one is co-op is about growth. So make sure you're emphasizing in your application how you've grown through your own experiences prior to university, but also you want to emphasize how co-op is key to furthering your own personal and career development. So those are my two takeaways, I would say.
Wonderful. And for me, I just want to reiterate something that I said earlier, which is, there is a lot of importance in taking time and revising your application and trying to get that external feedback so that you are able to sort of, rework it and make sure that it's really clear. Take time, take a step back from your application, make sure that you're working it over a longer period of time so you have that ability to take a step back, give yourself space, and then come back to your application with fresh eyes so you can really pinpoint, I want to reword this, this isn't very clear, or I remembered something, this is really cool, I'm going to add it into this section, or I'm going to rework it, and just sort of make sure that you're giving yourself the space to make sure that in the background your mind is ticking over and able to sort of really have that come through in your application. And then another sort of, takeaway, my second sort of golden nugget, it would be to make sure that you're not afraid to really communicate those insights that might have come from anywhere, any sort of error in your life. We've had a lot of questions about making sure that things are asking if things should be on a grand scale. We've sort of, demonstrated that that's not the case. Make sure that you're just communicating what you've learned, and including those growth opportunities, and reflecting on how you've grown, including from any setbacks and challenges. And most importantly, as a sort of final takeaway, be engaging, but be yourself. This is your application. This is your opportunity to show and shine. So make sure that comes through.
Yep. Wonderful. I think you've taken my two tips there, but I just want to maybe double down on them and lock that in. We really want to get to know the real you as much as we can through an application and with the character limits that are there. Have a look at the tips, keep those in mind, be practical, give yourself time, give your SAP contact time. reach out with any inquiries, have a look at the resources, do some research on the website, and most of all, you're doing all the right steps because you've attended this call and you're getting the answers that you need to. So massive big round of applause for Angus and Zoe. Thank you so much. That's why we'll end the call. And just to remind everyone too that we will be posting a recording of this as soon as possible so that it's up there with as much time as possible for you to revisit and hit submit. So I think that's the whole point of this event. So don't be one of the ones that are left in draft. I'm sure that last year there was a plethora of those that just simply forgot to hit submit or just had that last bit of polishing to do on their application that they didn't get around to. So don't fall into that category. And I look forward to seeing your applications and reading them on the way through.